What is up, my dudes? This is Phone aka PH, 1 aka Phone. This video will serve as an introduction to the basics of the Chrono Trigger Randomizer, currently known as CTRando. I'll try to cover the main details as they come up in the video. This footage is taken from a seed that I ran after the project was publicly announced, and while it does not demonstrate every check, it will show most of the important ones. While we wait for the countdown, let's look to the right at the tracker. The top row, of course, represents character recruits. In this randomizer, you will start the game with a single character that wakes up in Chrono's bed. The other characters will be scattered throughout the world in places where characters are recruited in the vanilla game. Because characters enter and exit the party multiple times throughout the game, not every spot is guaranteed to contain a character every run. For example, the cathedral can lead to 2 character recruits, one after the Naga fight in the first room, and one in the 600 AD Guardia castle over defeating the boss at the end. It can also lead to no recruits at all, as these characters are located elsewhere in the world. We will go over the rest of the tracker in more detail as the run unfolds. But the next row contains the key items: Bent Hilt, Bent Sword, Mass Immune, Upgraded Mass Immune, Hero Medal, Seed, and the Bite Key. The final item on this row represents Scaling Level, which is a new feature to Chrono Trigger Randomization. Depending on the settings of your seed, the scaling level will be increased by completing quests, dungeons, character recruits, boss kills, and key item checks. Most enemies in the game will have their stats adjusted to match the scaling level, which is roughly on par with what a party of the same level can handle. Additionally, each seed will contain a list of objectives to complete that will vary from run to run. These objectives will also increase scaling, and they are the main barrier to progressing to the end game. In this seed, when 2 objectives are completed, we will gain access to the last village in 12,000 BC and the Black Omen. The last village is significant as it will allow free access to the Blackbird dungeon, which will award a flying epic upon completion if you do not already have it. This enables access to the Black Omen, which is one path to the endgame showdown with Lavos, although this is a long and difficult path to take. Completing additional objectives will eventually unlock the bucket gates in the end of time, allowing direct access to Lavos. And if we follow objectives even farther, we will gain the ability to fly straight through the Lavos shell with the epic. The tracker gives us a peek at what we start with. We begin our journey with a robo and nothing else. We will have to find our way to Lavos and overcome him to complete the run. Let's take this opportunity to go over the 3rd row in the tracker. Here we have Gate Key, Dreamstone, Ruby Knife, Rainbow Shell, Prism Shell, Tools, Race Log, and Dactyl. In the next row we have Pendant, Chrono Trigger, Clone, Thomas Pop, Jerky, Moonstone, Sunstone, and Jets of Time. Now is a good time to open our menu and set our options, as there is no current method to preset these things. And if you look at your items, you can see the objectives for the run. If Chrono is in your party, you can speak to his mom to receive his allowance, which is shuffled into a pool with every obtainable item and tab in the game. A fairly standard opening play involves going to the fair. It's right next to your start location and contains 3 shops, a mini-boss in the form of GATO, and a free key item check with the possibility of a recruit. There is also a check that involves winning the clone minigame at the Tent of Horrors if you have the Chrono Trigger key item, or if you have Chrono at the head of your party, and 40 silver points. Eagle-eyed viewers have no doubt already noticed some tomfoolery. There was a Dreamstone on the ground as if it was dropped by someone. There was also a Wonder Shot for sale in one of the shops, and we have a Super Slash in this Goto spot. Allow me to explain. For Goto, every mini-boss in the game has had their locations shuffled. This includes the minions at Orz's Fort, Crowley in the sewers, Dalton at the Zeal Palace, Atropos at the Geno Dome, and, of course, our boy Gotto. This rare prehistoric red rock the Melchior from down the stairs says cannot be found in this time period is a stand-in for Miles' pendant in the vanilla game. This is one of the character recruit spots. If a character was present, they would have dropped this if you bumped into them. Because there is no character present, the item is simply laying on the ground for us to collect. As we can see, picking up the Dreamstone has lit up the Dreamstone item and the arch icon for the bell at the fair. It has also increased our scaling level to 2. The bottom 2 rows of the tracker represent checks and quests that do not require bosses and could be considered free. Those that have been paying close attention will know that we have not yet addressed why there was a wonder shot at a starting shop. The short answer is that, in the settings of this randomizer, you can set your own rules for what the shops can sell, and what you can in turn sell to the shops. In this seed, there are no restrictions on gear that can be found in shops. These shop settings are very versatile. As an example, there is nothing stopping you from creating a seed where you can buy key items at shops. The game's logic will not take these into consideration, however, so they can be considered a sequence break if you do purchase them. In this seed, which is modeled off of the standard settings, we start the run with our epic, which has access to 1000 AD, 600 AD, and 65 million BC. By default, it will be located on the eastern coast of the southern continent in 1000 AD. It does not, however, have flight by default. If you prefer a different style of run, you can alter the starting rewards of a seed to include things like the flying epic, all eras access on the time gauge, and other things that can change how a run is played. While we make our way through to Medina, let's go over what our Dreamstone can do. In this randomizer, characters and key items will very often open up other checks. The Dreamstone has 2 uses. First, it allows us to climb to the top of the Dactyl nest, which can contain a recruit, and also gives us the Dactyl, which we can use to fly to Reptite Lair, Tyranno Lair, and the Sun Keep in prehistory before flight is otherwise possible. Additionally, it is used with the bent sword and bent hilt to complete the Masamune Reforged check, which will award a random key item. It is also worth noting that there may be multiple means of accessing some checks. Reptite Lair, for example, can also be accessed by having Ayla in the party to stop Kino from blocking the forest maze entrance. Let's pause the key item talk to look at this looting. It was mentioned offhand when talking about Chrono's mom earlier, but all events that give items and tabs in the vanilla game have had their rewards shuffled. This means that picking up the tabs in the Medina Elder's house may give you anything from a tonic to a set of prism specs. If it was obtainable in the vanilla game, it will be somewhere out there. There are no chest tiers, so it is entirely possible that you can walk from Chrono's house to the Truce Mayor's house and pick up a Crisis Arm and the Haste Helm, which will certainly impact the amount of aggression and play with in the early stages of the run. Another notable feature here is that gates are freely accessible from the start of the run. This means that if you want to run straight to Guardia Forest and into the future, you can do that. If you want to run through Hekron and pick up some loot and EXP, then jump into prehistory with your Dreamstone, well, you can do that too. Because enemies are scaled, the only restrictions on your routing are what you can access and overpower. In this run, I opted for prehistory because the Dreamstone will open up the entire map and give me access to a good amount of chests in the forest maze, if I choose to go for those. Additionally, the hunting range new is an unscaled enemy that cannot kill you, so if you have either patience or strong damage output, you can fight that to get a strong start to your experience and tech point gains. On a related note, in this randomizer, we have the option to gain bonus experience and tech points while in a party with 1 or 2 characters. This can make solo play, whether intentional or unlucky, quite viable for the early stages of a run. Let's go back to some key item talk. Another important feature of the Dreamstone is that Chronosanity Lair will open up access to 12,000 BC and Zeal, which is where we transition into the mid to late game phase. This is the era where we can gain our flying time machine, if we have met the prerequisites for doing so. The main methods of achieving this are turning in the Jets of Time key item, the Blackbird on the main floating continent, which will trigger the epic boss encounter that will award flight. This is the faster, easier method, but it requires having the specific key item. The second fastest method involves accessing the last village through objective completion. In this seed, the objective threshold for last village access is 2, which is pretty easily obtainable in most runs. To get to the last village in this method, simply visit the cave that leads to Mount Woe, and you will see a gate at the entrance. This gate will transport you one day in the future to the ruins of the Zeal Kingdom, where you can be captured by Dalton and taken aboard the Blackbird. And we see our first recruit, its second best girl, Ayla. Depending on the settings, different recruit spots may have stronger characters. The best recruit spots in the game are the North Cape, which contains a level 37 recruit with 3 techs, and Death Peak, which contains a level 37 recruit with 7 techs. Different settings can change these recruits to be the average level of your party. And also, if you listen through the babbling, whom have heard that characters play their respective themes when they are recruited. In this shop, we see some more notable things. Ethers, for example, are quite pricey, and mid-ethers are actually slightly cheaper. Also, you can buy and sell tabs. This can give you some options in terms of how you want to build your party. You could potentially sell off a stack of tabs to get a high-tier item, for example. The ethers demonstrate that item prices have some variation and can be configured to your liking. Here we demonstrated the method of unblocking the forest maze. If Ayla is recruited, she smacks our man and makes him leave. With multiple tab pickups and a good magic defense source, this loot run is going quite well. A pretty good haul overall for the minute it took to run through. It's a good demonstration of the importance of routing in some high-density chest spots. There's not a lot to say about Reptite Lair, as it functions essentially the same as in any other version of the game. So let's go back to methods of obtaining flight. The third option involves the vanilla method of arriving at the last village, which is the completion of the Ocean Palace dungeon and the subsequent Fall of Zeal. This requires 12,000 BC access, a charged pendant, and the ruby knife. You can choose to fight or not fight Lavos at the end of the dungeon. There is a little problem with this method of challenging Lavos, however. Those that have played the vanilla game will know that this iteration of Lavos is significantly stronger than the one at the end of the game. It is technically possible to win this fight with a very strong party setup and preparation, and in a pinch, it can be the quickest path to finishing a run if you cannot find a quicker route to normal Lavos. If you lose or skip the fight, Zeal will be destroyed, and you will gain the opportunity to check the North Cape for a strong recruit and be captured by Dalton to gain flight access. Don't forget to talk to the lady protecting the plant to also unlock access to the desert if you plan on going there. We'll be fighting our first boss shortly, because the scaling level is only at 3 and Ayla joined the party at a significantly higher level than that. We can expect to win this battle without much issue. Cutting ahead a bit to respect our time. As you can see, this check is peekable to an extent, and gate key is the prize. We're likely going to want this for later, so let's commit. And the boss is Nisbal. Is this even randomized? Yes, I promise. Now is a good opportunity to bring up the fact that at low scaling levels, bosses with certain defenses will have more fair mechanics. Nisbal, for example, at this low of a level, will have reduced physical defense, allowing parties with no magic to have a chance at victory. Additionally, any element type will cause a shock status. And because Ayla was so strong, this was no trouble at all. Gate key acquired. Scaling will go up a decent chunk, and we will move on to the next one. Because this check was also an objective, we will gain scaling levels from the boss completion, key item acquisition, and the objective completion. This makes objective checks especially lucrative if you are confident in your party's power, as they will increase the rate at which you gain experience and tech points. This can also be dangerous if you cannot handle the increased difficulty well. Eagle-eyed viewers will also notice that there is an objective counter in the tracker. The bottom row of the key item section features endgame progression items heavily. It tracks flight access, blackbird access, black omen access, bucket access, epic lavos access, objective count, and the charge pendant. There is also, of course, the go mode tracker. It will light up any time you meet any combination of conditions that allow access to lavos. Flight and omen is one path, charge pendant and ruby knife is another. Bucket and end of time access also works. And of course, flight with 1999 time gauge access is a classic. For those that are coming from Jets of Time, it should be noted that there is not necessarily a go mode dungeon. While you can go through Black Omen and Ocean Palace to access lavos, they are not required. Whether you want to do these dungeons or not depends entirely upon the circumstances of each individual seed and your own preferences. As for the traditional go mode pre-dungeons, such as Magus Castle, Tyranno Lair, and Death Peak, they have been repurposed. Magus Castle and Black Tyranno both grant access to 12,000 BC, but this can also be achieved by taking the charged pendant to Keeper's Dome and entering the epoch there, so these dungeons are not mandatory. You're probably asking yourself, what about Death Peak? He didn't talk about Death Peak, you're right, but now I will. When you have obtained the chrono trigger and the clone, you can scale the peak. As with the vanilla game, there will be one boss there, but it will be fightable 3 times. This makes it a good place to pump up your levels and the scaling. Interestingly, in the vanilla game, the second lavos spawning counter is runnable. This behavior is retained here, so you only need to actually fight the boss here twice if you want to save time. At the top of the peak, if the seed settings allow, there will be a key item in the last chest. And in the spots where Chrono is resurrected, there is a chance for a character recruit during the cutscene. In settings where recruit spots have preset levels, this recruit is the strongest in the entire game. While we fight Giga Gaia, let's go back to our key items. We found gate key at Reptite Lair. You will have seen by now that it is not needed to go through gates. So what is it actually for? Well, if you have 4 characters recruited, entering a gate with the gate key will pull you to the end of time. There are a few important features here. In order of importance, the number 1 reason to go there is the song is a vibe. The second reason is it gives you bucket access for lavos. The third is a free heal anytime you pass through. You can talk to Specchio if you have a character that is at a low tech level, and depending on what form Specchio takes, he will bring your character's tech level up to match your party's current power level. In some settings, Gaspar will also give a key item after the Fall of Zeal. Additionally, some game modes, such as Entrance Rando, may grant access to every light pillar as a bonus. It's an optional starting reward. Let's skip ahead some more, because this location was also an objective. This will bring the total up to 2. As we mentioned earlier, in this seed to objectives will grant us Last Village and Black Omen access. We will need to find our way to 12,000 BC to get there, but we're not in a race, so we will be showing off other things first. And, thankfully, this is a much easier key item to explain than the previous 2. Tools will need to be given to the carpented in 600 AD to repair the northern ruins, which will grant us a key item if we visit Cyrus' grave with Frog and the Masamune. As we can see, going straight to objectives can really push the scaling up. We're at 15 now. If you auto-tracking, note that scaling level will not update until you enter the menu. We've performed some kind of instant transmission and are in the castle now. You will notice a Magus chilling to our left. In this spot, if there is a recruit here, we can talk to them and enter the prison break sequence. Your first character will be thrown into jail and will break out with the new recruit. Note that there is a boss at the end of this dungeon, and it will be done with a 2-character party. This may mean that you want to check this spot fairly early in the game or skip it entirely. It is also good to create backup saves outside the castle, so you don't brick your run on a boss you can handle. If there is not a character recruit in this location, Chrono's mom will instead be there, and you will need Luca recruited in order to begin the check, as she will be the one to break you out. There is not a key item here in most settings, so unless an objective requires you to go here, it is safe to avoid. You may have noticed that you can wait out the execution timer here. You can of course break out in the conventional way and get some extra experience and chests, but if you are trying to get in and out quickly, then execution will skip several encounters and generally be faster. Plus this scene is pretty fun. The footage of us breaking a thief out of prison could not be found. Mysteriously lost camera feed at the exact time it happened. Anyway, because chests are pretty good, this little side adventure can be worth. We'll take it. While we're looking at it, yes, there is tech damage rando. It is not mandatory, but it is the standard. There are different options for how techs are ordered and how much power techs can have overall. It's flexible. By default, techs are ordered by MP cost, so if you see a character with strong techs at the beginning, all of their future techs will be even stronger, so that character will be worth investing in. You can look at what techs are not yet learned to plan your future party. As an example, if I have an Ayla that has just learned a 15-course triple kick and she has not yet learned tail spin, I know tail spin will cost at least 15 MP and will pair very well with Luca for fire well. Or if I have a Chrono that has spin kit as his last tech, I want to look for Falcon Hit and Ice Sword or Fire Sword as they scale well off of spin kit. On this boss, Ayla is doing a fantastic job demonstrating how the physical defenses of this boss are scaled up significantly at this scaling level compared to how vulnerable Nizbor was at the beginning of the run. Skipping ahead, we can see here that prison does not lead you into the future. That is something that you always have access to. Now that we have Magus in the party, we can talk about what he brings to the table. In Magus Castle, the Sparkle teleporters can be made into shortcuts through the dungeon. You can go straight to the Magus encounter after clearing the first two bosses. Here's a demonstration of another feature. No matter where you are on the world map, if you hit Start plus Select, you can warp straight to Chrono's house. This is helpful to avoid running through the same areas over and over again. This is especially helpful in entrance Rando. And we have a sunstone at Snail Stop. It's not a super useful key item, it does not lead to more key items in most settings, but you can increase the scaling for the low price of 9,900 if you want to hear. As we just saw, the key item from the Jerky Trade quest here is peekable. He gives a rainbow shell. Rainbow shell, along with the Massimmune, the pendant, and the chrono trigger, are a special class of key items known as progressive items. They are paired with another key item, and they will always be found in the same order. The rainbow shell will always be acquired before the prism shard, regardless of which order the checks are done. The Massimmune will always become the upgraded Massimmune. The chrono trigger will always be acquired before the clone, and the pendant will always be found before the pendant charge. Anyway, the Sunstone will be used to acquire some additional items from Melchior at the conclusion of the King's Trial check. It's not something you want to prioritize, but if you are already doing the trial you may get some benefit. The Rainbow Shell will begin the King's Trial quest and grant access to the treasure vault chests, and a key item if you have Marl. Interestingly, there is nothing stopping you from taking the key item out of the basement and leaving. There is no mandate that you finish the trial, unless it is an objective, or you just really want the boss. As we mentioned earlier, News are unscaled and cannot kill you, so they are a fairly good source of early power if you have the means to fight them. At Frog's Burrow, we have the opportunity to receive a key item from his left side chest, and we may also receive a recruit there. If there is no character present, you can just open the chest and nobody will stop you. If there is a character there, you can show them the hero medal, and they will leave the chest open for you. And if you show them the Massimmune, they will join you and leave the chest open. Because the rules of this check can change depending on whether a character is present. This check may or may not be a free key item, and it's worth peeking when you are in the neighborhood. As you can see, there is no character to be found here. Because there was also no character at the fair, by process of elimination, we can start to piece together where we will find the other recruits. We did find a rainbow shell here. If you recall, the Jerky Trade item was also a rainbow shell. This is progressive key items in action. If we complete the Jerky Trade, our reward will now be the Prism Shard instead. While we're on the topic of recruit spots, it is worth mentioning that if there was a character at the fair to recruit, they will be looking for an item they lost. You will need to bring this item to them to recruit them. Marl, for example, requires a pendant. Luca requires a gate key. Frog wants a hero medal. If you talk to them, they will tell you what is required. Here we see a little retail therapy, as I was desperate to get my Robo's offense online, and a Terra arm was in the shop. Skipping ahead again, we have Cathedral, as always. Key item spots can vary depending on settings, but by default this has very high priority. With good chest density, the potential for to recruits, a key item, a boss, and the potential to be an objective, there's a lot to like here. It also sends you to the Guardia Castle afterwards, which is also full of chests. Moment of truth. The Naga attack confirms we have at least one recruit here. Luca is a character that opens up quite a few things. She can charge the Moonstone. She's needed to complete the desert quest along with Robo. She's needed to do the prison break sequence if there is no character present, and she is one of two characters, the other being Robo. that can complete the Mass Immune Reforged check. With 4 characters and the gate key, we are able to reach the end of time. Because we also have lost village access, Gaspar will have a gift for us. It's not a key item check in this seed, but we'll probably use it somewhere. So, where are we at now? We have 3 objectives complete. So if we take this Dreamstone through CTRando Lair, we will be able to head to the last village and the Blackbird for our flight access. We are also 1 objective shy of unlocking the bucket to fight Lavos directly now that we have end of time access. All things considered, this seed is going pretty well for us. But because this run was done for the purpose of teaching, we aren't going to prioritize finishing out the game. Looking at the objectives, we have Epoch Bourse, which is accessible via Blackbird access. CTRando Lair is open to us, as we have Dactyl already. Giant's Claw is off the table with no Thomas Pop and no flight. Jerky Trade is as well, because we don't have Jerky. Sunken Desert cannot be done immediately, but we have everything we need to unlock and complete it. So we have a solid path to completing up to 6 objectives right now. It will take some work to do it all, and we have other considerations, such as our party composition and power, before we can entertain the idea of beating Lavos. If the objectives were less available, we might be weighing whether we want to do a Black Omen run, but there is no need now. We've decided to head to CTRando Lair to transition into the mid-game stage. This dungeon in some ways is the quickest path to 12,000 BC, as the only thing blocking access to it is the Dreamstone. Coincidentally, the Black CTRando at the end is quite possibly the longest single boss in the entire game, so it kind of balances out. You may get early access to this dungeon, but completing it quickly can be a tall order. Thankfully, every encounter aside from the bosses can be skipped here, and there is no need to go to the basement first to progress to the upstairs segment. While we're climbing, let's talk about our friend the Black CTRando. He has a very large amount of HP, and if you are at or near the current scaling level, the Fire Breath can wipe your party outright if you lack sufficient magic defense or fire resistance. Ozala also takes some time to take out, which adds to the time the boss takes. Let's skip ahead a bit, shall we? As we can see here, Phone is ill-prepared and underscaling. He also has a Berserker on Ayla for the memes. Let's see how that goes. Not great so far. Did you know Ozala had a Hypno Wave attack? It's amazing what interesting things you see when you take entirely too long to take out certain enemies. Oh no, let's skip ahead some more. Okay, we're looking good. Ozala is down, we're dumping damage, everything is good. Haha, good thing we had that barrier. So this will serve as a warning that preparation for this boss will be important if you are thinking about taking this path to the Dark Ages. The other path, Magus Castle, is longer with more bosses, and Magus is generally quicker to deal with, and having Magus in your party can cut down the time significantly with his shortcut. The third path, taking the Epoch from the hangar in Keeper's Dome near Death Peak, requires some travel to reach, but is otherwise free. With good paving, the only mandatory encounter on that route is the mini-boss in the sewers, which isn't normally a threat. Anyway, we ended up losing this fight as Robo's barrier wore off and Ayla was berserked. Phone will take his L here and come back with a few more levels and some fire resistance from his inventory equipped. Let's see how he did. If barrier had actually gone out, we would have all survived here. We're on track to get through this, so let's skip ahead. Good night, reptiles. So now that we have Dark Ages access, we can get our flying epic and do our mid to late game things. We also have completed 4 objectives, which means we have Lavos access via the bucket in the end of time now. If we wanted to, we could do some preparations and attempt Lavos right now, but as this was recorded for educational purposes, we won't. If you recall our earlier objective unlocks, we have last village access. Let's see how we do that. Well, that was pretty easy, wasn't it? This gate will be sealed if you have not met the objective requirements to unlock it. There is an alternative path to reach this time period. All you have to do is destroy the Kingdom of Zeal by collecting the Charged Pendant and Ruby Knife and completing the Ocean Palace dungeon. This new in the middle tent is a shop, and if you are going to the Blackbird, it may be a good idea to spend your money here, so you do not need to recover it from the Blackbird chest, which will save some time and effort. This region is a character check. There are no special rules for recruiting a character located here. They are either there or they are not. In standard settings, this recruit will join your party at level 37 with 3 techs unlocked, which makes this a very high value check if you unlock the last village timeline early enough. While I was babbling, we spoke to the Zeal plant lady. She will open up the desert check in 600 AD when you talk to her here or at Zeal Palace, and you will need Luca and Robo to complete this check. You can, however, do the dungeon and boss without them. Let's get captured by our God Emperor now. As with vanilla, you lose all your equipment, items, and money here. There are a few things to consider with this. The locations of these things are not randomized, so if you have Ayla in your party, put her in the top party slot, and you can skip over the free equipment chest at the top of the dungeon. You can also take advantage of the experience bonus for having smaller parties, as inactive characters are considered not in the party. For example, in this fight here, Ayla will get triple experience as she is the only active party member. We skipped the top chest after starting to walk towards it at first. This chest will always contain the second party member's equipment, so plan your route with that in mind. If you wanted to, you could leave this chest unopened and go clear out a few encounters with your solo party leader if you want to boost their levels specifically. The door opposite this room contains an encounter with a large amount of enemies that can be very lucrative. This encounter can be skipped if you do not move upon entering the room and let it pass through you. If you are sufficiently speedy, you can begin this encounter while the robot is still off screen and avoid fighting it. This door we are headed towards will contain the third party member's equipment. The left door in the row south of us here contains your money, but we are avoiding it as we already spent it before coming here. We're returning here for some extra levels, since we went into Chrono lair underleveled, and it only pumped our scaling up higher upon completion. We have the bosses to contend with at the end of this dungeon, so a little safety grinding can be good. Please also note that there is no escape from this place aside from reverting to a previous save or defeating the bosses. So keep a backup save and ensure you have a party setup you are confident in before committing. This encounter is skippable, but executing it is not consistent for me. Someone with more knowledge might know a way to do it better. And then in this room, if you simply go left instead of up, they won't even see you. Here is where our items are held. One thing you can do is have your character's gear in your inventory, so you can simply re-equip it after looting this chest, and it could save you some time over gathering all the equipment up. There is also the unequip bug, which I won't be explaining here, but it's easy to find information on. Looks like we've caught up to scaling somewhat. We'll need to head through this door to reach the bosses. While on the wing, I will warn you if you have not regained all of your stuff. Interestingly, any unrecovered items and gear with the exception of your money will be restored upon completing the dungeon. Do with this information what you will. These enemies we are avoiding here are essentially rubbles from Mount Woe, but harder to take down. The rewards are similarly good. We fight one boss here. While it was a joke in the vanilla game, it can be quite serious here. Immediately after this fight ends, a second will begin on the epic. In standard settings, enemy drops and charms are vanilla, so if you know where the good items are, you can use this to your advantage. Let's skip ahead. Flee is the only thing left between us and our freedom. With another objective down, we now have access to every method of fighting Lavos aside from the really hard one in Ocean Palace. By any metric, we would be in the endgame now. But let's keep doing random stuff. Something worth noting here that once you have flight, you can access the last village timeline with your epoch by going to 12,000 BC, then selecting 12,000 BC again from your time gauge. This will be important if you want to go through the Black Omen, as by default it will only be in this timeline. With flight access, a few additional checks will be open to us. Generally speaking, this will be the late game areas in the original game, as they would have been inaccessible without flight. So Geno Dome, Northern Ruins, Sun Keep, things like that. You can also use flight to bypass access restrictions on places like Chrono lair and Magus Castle. We're going to showcase the new Ozz's Fort. Because Flea Plus and Super Slash are considered mini-bosses, they will be shuffled among enemies like Gotto, Crowley, Dalton and Atropos. The interesting thing here is that, in the Aussie trio fight, these mini-bosses will be present in place of Flea and Slash, and Aussie will also be a random boss from the regular boss pool. The difficulty and strategy of this boss will vary from seed to seed, of course. For those of us that like the vanilla Aussie trio fight, you are also in luck if that boss is now in the regular boss pool and can be found in any boss location. Let's skip ahead to see what our next trio fight will be. It's Atropos. This is a mini-boss that you may or may not be thrilled to see, depending on your party composition. As with the vanilla game, defeating Atropos will award Robo with a permanent +10 magic defense and 3 speed. This bonus will apply even if Robo is not yet recruited or in the party. It also applies regardless of where Atropos is found, so if you find her at the fair, it's probably a good seed for Robo. Magic defense is perhaps the most important stat to be mindful of when planning your endgame strategy. At default scaling, Lavos 2 will open with his famous nipple lasers. Any character that's below about 80 magic defense will have a very hard time surviving that opening, so a bonus of 10 on Robo, who is the worst magic defender in the game, can be a game changer. It can be good to have some casters on hand, as they have higher natural magic defense to possibly be able to get through that boss at a lower level. Alternatively, look for items such as Moon Armor, Magic Seal, Flea Vest, Prism Helms, and anything that grants an auto barrier buff. I mentioned not wanting to see Atropos in some situations, and we saw why now. She does not actually give experience when defeated, so if you are benching Robo, she's a bit of a wasted fight. And here we have our triple threat. Depending on what boss is using the Aussie sprite, this could be scary with Crowley able to reduce a character's hit points to 1. And Hijakra. We mostly need to be careful to not trigger a counter immediately after Crowley does his thing. All things considered, the bosses here could have been a lot worse. We'll let this play a bit longer before we move on to the next thing. Okay, you get the idea. By default, Aussie's fort is not a key item spot. If you would like, it can be made into one by placing a key item into one of these chests. Aussie's fort is also a potential objective, and it gives some good experience with a handful of free chests, so it can be good for last-minute Lavos preparations. And the fort is completed. A fade out to the minimap has been added to this dungeon, so it will save some time compared to running out. Just remember to loot before finishing. Protodome is where we went next. This is of course a character recruit spot. Aside from the access requirements of either flight or the bike key to cross Lab 32, there is no other restriction here. You either have a recruit or no character will be here. And we find Chrono. Let's enjoy his theme for a moment before moving on. We don't have Marl yet, but let's turn in our rainbow shell. While we will need Prism Shard to fully complete the King's Trial, we can go into the basement and take the key item from the rainbow shell if Marl is in the party. This item is also peekable if we have not yet recruited her, so we can plan to recruit her and come back if it's something we really want. Here's another peekable thing. This character will be made available by returning to this room and completing the cathedral. We can choose to obliterate them if we want by interacting with them, but this does not actually need to be done for any reason. For those that are used to Jets of Time's checks, the chef and the Xenon Bridge checks have been separated. By default, the chef will award to random items, and the bridge will be completable if you give a jerky to the Knight Captain. There is no key item on the bridge by default, either. But as with everything else, it can be made one. The bridge can also be an objective. We interrupt this bridge talk with an important development. We found Ayla's bronze fist. Her upgraded fists can be found in any item spot. They do not do any additional damage, but they can roll different weapon effects. This one, however, is vanilla. The 9,999 damage crits will go through any defenses, so this may well be something that can carry us through the end. It looks like we want to go to Cathedral next. This check is interesting as it contains potentially to recruits, a boss, a high amount of chests, and it can be an objective. There is a lot of incentive to go here. We'll save the demonstration of how to run this dungeon for another time. This chest in the top right will be the key item spot, unless otherwise specified. We have a C trigger. This is the first stage of the C trigger to clone progressive item. With this, we can freely access the clone game of Norstein Beckler's Tent of Horrors in the Millennial Fair. This item is peekable if you have the C trigger, as he will tell you before the game begins what it is. You will need to mimic the action 22 times to win the game, but with the C trigger, he will charge you money if you fail. The item will then be in Chrono's bedroom. While we recruit Frog, let's babble some more. The clone game check can be accessed out of sequence if you have Chrono in the party. You will need him at the front of the party, and you need 40 silver points to attempt the game. Without the C trigger, the reward will not be peekable, and you must complete all 22 mimics to receive the key item. If you fail, you will lose your silver points, so save beforehand. The C trigger requires no points. We're heading back to the cathedral for a quick loot run. The side doors that contain a bunch of chests and the bromide normally trigger mandatory encounters, but if you do not need the experience, you can simply come back after clearing and loot them freely. Pretty good loot here today. Really good loot it turns out. The value of chest density is really on display here. We do, of course, turn in the bromide. It's a normal item spot, but you know the drill. You can make it a key item check if you want. Let's cash in this C trigger. If you are Mr. Moneybags, you could intentionally fail this game early to get the key item quicker, at great expense. We saw that the key item was a bent hilt. This item has two main uses. The first is that you can speak to Tartar after he flees Dinardoro Mountain while carrying either the bent hilt or bent sword, and he will hand you a key item. The second is that you can take both sword pieces, the Dreamstone, and either Luca or Robo to reforge the Massimmune, which will award another key item. This check can also be an objective. The clone will be at Chrono's house. This is a good time to remind everyone that you can warp to Chrono's house while on the world map by holding start and pressing select. Just like that. So with this bent hilt, we can quickly do the first room of Dinardoro and turn around for the free key item, or we can commit to the full check for 2. After this scene plays out, Tartar will be at his house on the south edge of the continent. We chose to take the key item and run. The jets of time can either be a game changer or useless depending on when you find them. If you already have flight, they serve no purpose. If you have Zeal access, but either cannot go to the Blackbird dungeon yet, or you just plain want to skip that dungeon, you can take the jets to the Blackbird platform on the main floating continent in Zeal, and turn them in for a quick boss fight on the epoch for your flight access. Looks like we're preparing to do the desert. This check is a good bit more involved than its Jets of Time counterpart. You will need Zeal access to unlock the dungeon, as you will need to talk to the plant lady in the Zeal Palace or in the last village commons to open the dungeon. From here, you can clear it and defeat the boss. If you have Robo, you can restore the forest and gain access to Fiona's shrine and the shop. And away we go, because this is an endgame dungeon from the vanilla game. The enemies will be abnormally strong and give some good rewards in terms of experience and drops, making this another excellent late gameplay to get some last minute power for Lavos. We do of course want water to reduce their defenses and their physical evasion, but sufficiently strong magic of other types can also do the trick in a pinch. Watch your hit points closely, as these enemies can very quickly spiral out of control. Yeah, they're pretty strong. Moving on. As you will see here, the boss here is peekable. It's also more dangerous to loot this room, as it will move around. Enter at your own risk. He's coming right for us. Alright, let's go turn this bad boy in. Make sure to have Robo in the party here. Luca will want to be at the head of the party for the next part. Let's go rescue our boy. This iconic scene returns. Luca will need to enter the gate and go through her childhood trauma in order to finish this check. We will attempt to rescue Luca's mom, Lara, from Taben's machine. While this check will award a key item regardless of pass or fail here, it's generally considered bad manners to leave her immobilized. The password to the machine is of course, Lara. Interestingly, you can hold the buttons LR and A, and it will input the password very quickly. I did this here to demonstrate how fast it is. Let's collect our reward. I cry every time. Also, we have our mass immune now. There is no recruit at the burrow today, but if there was, you could get them now. We also could cut open the magic cave to do Magus, if we did not already have flight. And with Frog and the tools in the party, we can complete the Cyrus grave check too. There is a second mass immune in the pool somewhere, and if you collect that one, it will upgrade into Frog's ultimate weapon. Another new mechanic in this randomizer that doesn't get highlighted much is that, depending on what form Specchio takes in the end of time, he will be able to raise a character's tech level to a certain threshold. So if you are approaching endgame levels, you can bring some bench warmers up here to get their tech list filled out without having to grind them up. The vanilla rewards for defeating Specchio's various forms are also intact, so if you are feeling confident in your party, fight Specchio for a stack of tabs and MP recovery items. There is a plan to have Specchio as a potential objective as well. With Luca's tech list filled out, we see that her strongest tech will be an 18 MP Fire 2. This is an excellent find because many strong dual techs will use it. Fire Whirl with Ayla is one notable example. Fire Tackle with Robo and Antipode to with Marla others. Let's scope out the Cyrus grave check. While there are lucrative enemy encounters to be found upstairs, as well as some good chests, we won't be seeing those today. To initiate the check, talk to the carpenter in the cafe with tools, then follow him to his house and pay him to fix the ruins. To complete the check, go to the left side stairs with Frog and the mass immune and interact with the grave. Very nice. With the jerky, we have two choices. We can use it for the jerky trade at the Paul Mayor's house, which will award a peekable key item, or use it for the Xenon bridge check. Unless the bridge is an objective in your seed or you've placed a key item there, the trade is generally the better choice. There are however two jerkies that you can obtain, so there isn't necessarily a wrong choice. This is where we'd use our Marl to complete the King's Trial, if we had one. There is no need to actually complete this outside of it being an objective if you really want some more item pickups. We headed to Sun Palace next. There isn't much nuance to this one. You fight a boss, you get an item. Sometimes it's an objective, moving on. And now we have completed our requirements for the Massimmune Reforged check. It's a lot of requirements for a simple check, but at this stage of a run you will want all the free progression you can get. Our boy Melchior seems to be losing his mind. We'll leave him be. We have the clone now, so we can access Death Peak. This is a fairly unique location, as it contains 3 boss encounters. As with vanilla, these bosses will be the same enemy, for better or worse. It can potentially be very lucrative, but it will also increase scaling for each one you defeat. There is no need to visit Keeper's Dome to initiate this check. Simply acquire the clone and begin your climb. At the top, there will be a chest that is often used as a key item check, and, perhaps more importantly, a potential character check, the strongest one in the game. In normal settings, this character will be level 37 and have 7 techs unlocked, so if you can access Death Peak early, it can be a very attractive option. Right through this cave is our boss for the mountain. You can peek it and decide if fighting this guy 3 times will be worth the effort. Thankfully in this run, yes, it probably is. There is a good amount of variation in the rewards each boss gives. In the normal settings, charms and drops are default. So if you have Ayla here, knowing the charm tables can be very helpful if you run into a late game enemy that has something really good. You can get 3 of whatever that ends up being. You may be asking yourself, what on earth is a dragon arm? In short, it is the crisis arm if the crisis effect rolls off of it. The name is a reference to Robo's ultimate weapon in the newer versions of the game, and it has a strong attack power. Through this door is our second boss. For whatever reason, in the vanilla game, this boss allows you to run and skip it entirely. This behavior carries over here. You'll never guess what's up here. You know the drill. Push the boss, climb the boss, collect your last chest and cross your fingers for the strong recruit. The pendant is one of the most consequential items you can find. It can be used to recruit Marl at the fair, and it can also recruit Magus at the fair if it is charged. It can be offered to the Mammon machine for an additional key item. It is progressive, with the second stage being the charged pendant. The charged pendant, of course, opens sealed chests, sealed doors, and the sealed pyramid at Medina Village. If you take it to the Keeper's Dome with Death Peak, you can enter the Epic Hangar to gain 12,000 BC access on your time gauge. The pendant will open up the Zeal Throne Room, which can be an objective. You can continue this path down to the Ocean Palace, and you can complete up to the Twin Boss with just the charged pendant. In order to actually finish the dungeon, you will need the Ruby Knife. With that, you can either fight the hard version of Lavos, or take the coward's way out and destroy the entire kingdom of Zeal. This will of course lead into the last village and associated dungeons. And we have a mole here at Death Peak, completing our party. Let's go ahead and cash in that free mammon machine check. The moonstone is pretty straightforward as well. We drop it off in prehistory, Luca picks it up in the future, and we get a key item and 2 additional items. And there's that pendant charge. We are not lacking equipment at this point, and we already have Magus and 12,000 BC access, so the primary use for us here will be heading to the Ocean Palace if we find Ruby Knife, if we want to fight Hard Lavos as a flex. By default, these are just shuffled items, but like previously stated, we can make the game put cool stuff here too. We'll go ahead and demonstrate Keeper's Dome, just in case someone wasn't familiar with the location. If you came here earlier in the run, you would simply talk to this blueberry to gain 12,000 BC and the future on your time gauge. Next we will demonstrate the rainbow shell check, after gesturing at it for the last hour, while we did not have Marl in the party. Note that the boss is not required to be fought to obtain the key item here. Just a quick in and out, unless you need to do the actual trial segment. We found Thomas Pop, which is another simple one. Pour it on Thomas' grave, and then head to Giant's Claw for the key item there. Sorry about your situation, my king. Good luck. Just a no frills, straightforward experience. We have a hero medal here. This has the default vanilla behavior of increasing the critical hit rate of the Massimmune, and it can also roll additional bonuses. As the burrow has already been cleared of anything meaningful, we will not use it to access the burrow chest here. The medal is also used to recruit Frog at the fair, if that is where he is. We are headed to Genodome now. There are 3 notable differences here compared to what you may be used to. The first is that Robo is required to enter. The second is that you can choose to skip the opening conveyor belt gauntlet. The third is that you will fight a mini-boss before the end of the dungeon, like in the vanilla game. This will be a 1v1 fight with your party leader and a random boss from the mini-boss pool. Goto is absolutely terrifying when scaled up, by the way. An absolute menace. There is also no time-consuming cutscene down here. The seed has two uses. The first is that it is required to recruit Robo if he is present at the fair. The second is that you can turn it in to donate the Aris Dome for a second key item in addition to the one you acquire from the food storage after the boss. You will need to complete both of these checks to gain credit for the Aris Dome objective. Let's skip ahead to the boss. And here we have the Aussie Trio Fight, Vanilla Edition. These fleabots and auto slashers are stand-ins for the originals, as there are some technical issues with having a lot of sprites in one location. Moving on, this corpse is holding our first key item. Note that there is no need to catch the rat or go to the right side of the basement here, unless you really want some additional chests. You can simply collect this and leave. The bike key will allow us to cross lab 30 to on foot, which will give us access to the factory and Protodome if we do not have flight unlocked. If you have Chrono in the party, you can race Johnny, but if you do not, he will refuse to race you and you can simply cross on foot instead. The bike key is also needed to recruit Chrono from the fair, if he is there. We received the ruby knife from our seed turn-in just now as well, which will gives us the ability to complete the Ocean Palace. Hard Lavos will be at the end if you wish to go quickly to your grave. Anyway, let's do it. Just as a reminder, this method of doing Lavos is not necessary or recommended. Any other version of the boss will be orders of magnitude less powerful. My king sits atop his rightful throne. Anyway, we finished Ocean Palace, and yes, the twin boss is randomized. This guy will block your path if you do not have the ruby knife. By the way, ask me how I know. This little scene will play out as the screen fades out. You will be given the option of fighting Lavos here. If you select no, the game will treat it as if Lavos defeated you and unlock the last village. This is a good alternative to the objective method of unlocking that time period if objectives are out of reach. Anyway, let's smash this hard mode. Oh dear. The script here, thankfully, is really simple. The challenge here is mostly that his damage output and speed are light years above any other boss in the game, and he throws out status immediately after nearly one-shotting your entire party. And then Lavos was dead, the end, but let's go ahead and deal with the easier second and third phases. If you are coming from vanilla, where you generally have high levels and the best gear available to you at this point, or if you are used to the jets of time iteration of this boss, these nipple lasers may catch you off guard. We mentioned it earlier, but if you are lacking in levels and magic defense, this attack may just one-shot your party outright. In this run, however, we are severely over-leveled due to demonstrating a bunch of checks. At 50 scaling, or with unscaled Lavos, a good magic defense value to aim for, nearly about 80 to get through this. For scaled Lavos, generally if you are about 5 levels above the scaling level with a decent party, you will probably find a way to get through it. Because the Lavos fight retains the stats and script of the vanilla game, there's not really much need to explain much here. So we'll go over the things that we didn't see on this run, in the order in which they appear on the tracker. The grayed out sword is the upgrade Masamune. It doesn't do anything except make Frog have a good weapon. Depending on the settings, you can either find it in a random item spot or a key item spot. Lavos related tip: obstacle in this randomizer is always confuse. It is still ideal to have status protection here, but it is not mandatory if you can play around it. The next item on the tracker is the race log. It is not found in key item spots by default. It will allow you to win items by getting high cores in the Johnny race, and it will also allow you to turn the camera in the race to a more playable position. We don't really utilize this yet, but probably will eventually. On to the bosses. We have Yakra 13 from King's Trial, Zomba from the Bridge, Osiris from the Factory, Masamune from Dinaldoro, Queen Zeal from the Black Omen, Magus from Magus Castle, and Gigagea from Mount Woe. There's not a lot to say about these bosses aside from what was discussed when talking about their checks earlier. The factory check is an alternative method of accessing the end of time if you cannot find the gate key or 4 recruits. Magus Castle is a method of unlocking 12,000 BC, but is otherwise not notable. Magus can skip the bulk of this dungeon if he's in your parity. While we wrap this up, let me take this time to thank PseudoArk for the work that was done on this randomizer, and of course everyone involved in the long history of modding Chrono Trigger and other games that have helped to make all of this possible in the first place. While this video was a bit unstructured, I hope seeing a seed play out with explanations of things as they appear will be a helpful tool in learning this randomizer. There is a written guide in the Discord server, which will be linked in the description. Feel free to stop by and give this a try and tell us what you want to see in the future. And feel free to reach out to me personally if you want any advice on playing this. And there's the finish. Thanks for watching, and good luck in your runs.